It was supposed to be a routine flight, a quiet journey beneath a blanket of stars, a well-traveled route, a veteran pilot, hundreds of lives held aloft by the marvel of modern aviation. And then, nothing. A silence so complete it shattered the very foundation of trust we place in the skies. No wreckage, no signals, no answers. For years, the story of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 has haunted investigators, families, and travelers around the world. The aircraft didn't just vanish, it dissolved into myth, speculation, and shadowy possibilities. But now, after a decade of whispers and painstaking investigation, scientists have finally uncovered a clue so compelling that it threatens to rewrite everything we thought we knew. What they discovered doesn't just close a case, it opens a darker chapter, because the truth might be even more terrifying than the mystery itself. This is not just the unraveling of aviation's greatest enigma, this is the unraveling of our assumptions about safety, control, and the fragile fabric of modern technology. Stay with us until the end, because what you're about to hear is not theory. It's the final, chilling revelation of what really happened to Flight MH370. It began like any other overnight flight. On March 8, 2014, at 12:41 a.m., Flight MH370 lifted off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport, headed for Beijing. A 6-hour journey across Asia's calm air corridors. Piloted by the experienced Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah and First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid, the Boeing 777 carried 227 passengers and 12 crew members, people of all ages and backgrounds, from 15 different nations, families, children, business travelers. The initial leg of the flight was uneventful. The aircraft reached cruising altitude, made contact with Malaysian air traffic control, and prepared to hand off to Vietnamese airspace. And then, silence. The last words spoken from the cockpit were calm and routine. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Seconds later, the transponder went dark. Civilian radar lost the aircraft. No distress signal, no deviation warning, just silence. For 40 minutes, the aircraft was invisible to the outside world. But military radar picked up something strange. MH370 had turned sharply west, flying back over Malaysia and into the Strait of Malacca. Then it disappeared again. That bizarre mid-air U-turn was the first in a long list of movements that defied logic, protocol, and expectation. Investigators were faced with an aviation paradox. A modern aircraft, equipped with transponders, fail-safes, satellite tracking, and redundant communication systems, had simply disappeared. It wasn't just a tragedy, it was a technological impossibility. The disappearance triggered the largest search in aviation history. Over the weeks that followed, theories multiplied. Eyewitnesses in the Maldives claimed to have seen a low-flying jet, while oil rig workers in the South China Sea reported fiery objects streaking across the sky. Satellite company Inmarsat released cryptic handshakes between their satellites and the aircraft hours after it vanished, suggesting MH370 had flown for up to 7 more hours, silent, untraceable. The analysis of these satellite pings suggested 2 possible flight paths: a northern corridor into Central Asia, or a southern arc plunging deep into the Indian Ocean. But the northern route would have required the plane to pass over multiple militarized airspaces, and not a single radar picked up any trace. That left the southern path, an expanse of empty ocean so vast and hostile it swallowed every trace of the aircraft. In a strange twist, parts of the plane began washing ashore over a year later. A flaperon in Reunion, wing fragments in Tanzania, debris in Madagascar, confirmed to be from MH370. But the discoveries were sporadic and incomplete. Meanwhile, theories took darker turns: hijacking, pilot suicide, mechanical failure, cyber attack, even government conspiracies and Russian espionage. One disturbing clue was a flight path found on Captain Zahari's home simulator that mirrored the trajectory toward the southern Indian Ocean. Was it a tragic rehearsal or a coincidence? Investigators, including the FBI, tore apart financial records, social media, and crew logs. Nothing concrete ever emerged. The plane's path, if intentional, had been brilliantly concealed. The ocean, if responsible, had swallowed every clue, until now. While conspiracy theories dominated public discourse, scientists worked in silence, relying on physics, oceanography, and advanced signal processing. The turning point came not from dramatic evidence, but from methodical modeling. The satellite handshakes from Inmarsat, 7 signals in total, were reanalyzed using updated algorithms and drift studies. These models traced how ocean currents could carry aircraft debris from specific crash sites to known discovery points. After years of refinement, researchers from Ocean Infinity, Geomar, and other institutions converged on a new, narrower impact zone west of Australia. But the most disturbing finding wasn't the location, it was the trajectory. Based on vertical speed indicators and wing damage patterns, investigators concluded the aircraft hadn't glided or attempted a controlled ditching. It had plunged into the ocean at a near vertical angle. This ruled out many accidental scenarios. A controlled descent? Unlikely. A systems failure? Possible but inconsistent. The steep dive hinted at one chilling possibility, that the cockpit was unresponsive, the systems were compromised, or worse, that the descent was deliberate. New acoustic studies from deep-sea hydrophones near the suspected crash area picked up what could be interpreted as an underwater impact signature, previously overlooked. These faint pressure waves, consistent with a high-speed oceanic impact, matched the exact timing of MH370's final handshake. It wasn't proof in the courtroom sense, but for scientists, it was the closest thing to a confession from the deep. As evidence mounted, the picture that emerged wasn't just tragic, it was psychologically devastating. The idea that a commercial airliner, filled with ordinary people, could be silently rerouted, its systems shut down and flown. Yet, no one could answer the most painful question of all. Why? Captain Zahari's personal life, though under strain, revealed no definitive red flags. First Officer Farik was engaged to be married, with a bright future ahead. The passengers showed no signs of terror involvement. Was it a hijacking, a ghost pilot, a suicidal mission? Even the scenario in which the cockpit crew was incapacitated raises unbearable implications. That passengers sat in silence for hours, flying into the abyss with no explanation, no goodbye. And all of this unfolded in an era when the world is blanketed in surveillance and digital tracking. MH370 didn't just vanish. It exposed a blind spot, a flaw in our systems, a gap in our collective control over the technologies we believe protect us. And now that gap has a name, it has a shape, and it has a final trajectory. As days turned into months and months into years, the Indian Ocean held its secrets tight. But scientists refused to let silence win. Advanced underwater drones, equipped with sonar arrays and deep-tow submersibles, swept the seafloor in one of the most ambitious recovery missions ever launched. The priority wasn't just to find wreckage, but to decode the truth. And then, nearly 2 years later, in one of the most desolate parts of the ocean floor began to whisper. A wing flaperon, later confirmed to be from MH370, washed ashore on Reunion Island. Shortly after, several other parts were recovered from Madagascar and Mozambique. But instead of solving the mystery, the fragments raised more questions. The damage patterns didn't align with a standard crash profile. Metallurgical testing hinted at an unusual breakup scenario. The ocean hadn't been kind to the evidence, but the message was there, buried in the scars of the metal. Something was not right. While engineering and satellite data dominated the headlines, a more human story was unfolding behind closed doors. Psychological profiles of the flight crew, especially Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, were scrutinized. A flight simulator in his home contained a deleted route eerily similar to the one the plane eventually took. Was this a coincidence or a silent confession? Investigators walked a delicate line between forensic analysis and speculation, unable to confirm any motive yet unwilling to dismiss the implications. Some suggested the captain might have executed a deliberate act, citing stress, political instability, or personal turmoil. But others pushed back, pointing to the absence of hard evidence and the captain's decades-long spotless record. The division wasn't just among experts. It split families, aviation communities, and entire governments. The cockpit had become a courtroom, and every data point was a witness. Amid the chaos, one of the most groundbreaking elements of the investigation emerged from a place few expected: a British satellite company named Inmarsat. Using an experimental technique known as burst timing offset and Doppler analysis, Inmarsat engineers charted MH370's flight path in the absence of traditional radar. The result was a log-on handshake, a ghostly data stream that pinpointed the aircraft's arc across the Indian Ocean. It was the first time in aviation history that such satellite data had been used to reconstruct a flight path in real time. Yet even this technological miracle came with shadows. The method was untested, its accuracy debated, but the implications were massive. MH370 had flown south alone for hours. No distress signal, no communication, just silence. Some called it the triumph of science. Others called it a smokescreen. In the end, as scientists, aviation experts, and independent researchers gathered the puzzle pieces, a chilling picture began to form. All the evidence, flight path, debris, satellite pings, and crew data, converged toward a singular hypothesis: that the flight was taken off course intentionally, its transponders disabled, and its systems selectively turned off. Whether it was an act of sabotage, a carefully planned mission, or a catastrophic psychological break, the pattern was undeniable. This wasn't a random accident. It was orchestrated. The theory, while horrifying, offered closure to some and fury to others. Because if true, it meant the tragedy could have been prevented. That lives were lost not to chance, but to choice. And for those left behind, that's the heaviest truth of all. After a decade of darkness, the mystery of Malaysian Flight 370 seems to have finally surrendered part of its truth, but not without extracting a cost. The chilling reality isn't just that the plane disappeared, but that the disappearance may have been calculated, intentional, and silent. Each revelation, from satellite pings to oceanic debris, from psychological autopsies to groundbreaking data analysis, brings us closer to an uncomfortable understanding that technology can guide us to the edge of truth, but not across it. The black box of this story isn't buried in the ocean floor. It's embedded in the silence that followed the final handshake, the unanswered questions, and the ghosts still orbiting around a sky that failed to protect them. What happened to Flight MH370 might never be fully known, but what it revealed about humanity, vulnerability, and the limits of control is perhaps even more terrifying. And now we ask you, after everything we've uncovered, what do you believe happened that night? Could we have prevented it? Or are some mysteries meant to stay hidden beneath the waves? Subscribe for more deep investigations like this one, because the truth isn't always where we expect, and sometimes the silence says more than words ever could.